going to read, funnily enough, something about Jesus on a mountain, but it's quite a glorious one. I'm going to read from Matthew 17, verse 1 to 12. After 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, the brother of James, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. There he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light. Just then there appeared before them Moses and Elijah talking with Jesus. But Peter said, "Lord, it's good for us to be here. If you wish, I'll put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and for Elijah." And one of the other Gospels adds, he didn't know what he was saying. Verse 5, while he was still speaking, a bright cloud enveloped them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." What an experience this must have been. And when the disciples heard this, they fell face down to the ground, terrified. But Jesus came and touched them, said, "Get up." He said, "Don't be afraid." And when they looked up, they saw no one except Jesus. And as they were coming down from the mountain, Jesus instructed them, "Don't tell anyone what you've seen until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead." And the disciples asked them, "Why then do the teachers of the law say that Elijah must come first?" He was anticipated to come before the Messiah. Jesus replied, "To be sure, Elijah comes and will restore all things, but I tell you, he has come in the person of John the Baptist, and they did not recognize him, but have done to him everything they wished. In the same way, the Son of Man is going to suffer at their hands." So quite a passage, quite an episode, quite a revelation of who Jesus is. It's true, isn't it? Sometimes things don't, your first impressions are not, sometimes they're not what counts. They're not the reality of things. You know, sometimes we meet people and we think, "Oh, don't like that person." Then you get to know them. "Oh, actually, they're quite a nice person." And oh, sometimes you fall in love with that person. Actually, my mum, who's recently passed away, she used to say about my dad, well, she used a very choice Irish expression, which I will not repeat, but she definitely didn't like him at first sight. But on their second date, my dad was kneeling in the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland and proposing to her, to which she, aghast, said yes. So from first impressions that were wrong, definitely, in his case, she changed. And life's a bit like that. Even the things that we, objects, you know, I think of a coconut, you know, it's all kind of brown and hairy, but inside there's this kind of very refreshing milk drink. When we lived abroad in Italy, there was these kind of big green round things. They were green and shiny, quite attractive in one way, but watermelons, you know, and I just love this green, boring green thing. But you open them up when it's really hot and you suck into a slice of watermelon. That's definitely, for a whole year, I thought, this is God's gift to earth, you know. In hot weather, a succulent, sweet, juicy watermelon, you know. Beyond the external experience, there was something wonderful at its heart. And so when Jesus came, that's really, he was like that, wasn't he? He was born in anonymity. He just grew up in a normal, clearly poor family. And when we think of the artwork of Jesus, often, unfortunately, it's kind of this kind of anemic, sort of pale-skinned, often blonde-haired, sort of weak kind of character, you know, just this kind of first impression, sometimes wrong artistic impression too. But he walked in anonymity, and then at the age of about 30 began to teach. And then they realized he was teaching with authority, and then he began to do miracles. So there's a build-up of something. This person is just not an ordinary person. There's something amazing about him, and the crowds were amazed. There was like rumors of glory going on, just this kind of build up, until it reaches this point, just this explosion. There is a apparent human being, but something was revealed from him, from within him, that blew these literally disciples away. It says he shone like the sun. Well, that's pretty strong. His clothes were as white as light. And then a bright cloud comes, and a voice from heaven says, "My son, whom I love, with whom I'm well pleased." A bit later in John, the same John in Revelation, he had the same picture of Jesus. Do you remember it? Of someone, the Son of Man, dressed in a robe, reaching down to his feet with a golden sash around his chest. His head and hair were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were blazing fire. His feet were like bronze, glowing in a furnace, and his voice was like the sound of rushing waters. His face was like the sun shining in all its brilliance. Same person. That's what was he was the one that was being revealed in this point. He was the eternal I am, all kind of pouring out of him in great glory. And if you remember a bit later, when they decided to arrest Jesus, who are you looking for? Jesus of Nazareth. And what did he say to them? In John's Gospel it says, in the English translation it's I am he, but literally it is I am. I am. He repeats that twice. What do? They fall over, just like the disciples, to the ground. A revelation of who the Lord is, who Jesus is and was. And that's the question, isn't it, really? Who is Jesus? Who is this Jesus? Is he this kind of a weak, anemic figure that we see sometimes in some artwork? Is he just a teacher? Is he just a prophet? Who is he? In the previous chapter, Jesus actually asked the disciples that. Who am I? And who do others say that I am? Some say you are Elijah, one of the prophets. To Simon Peter, who do you say that I am? What does he say? You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. He had a glimpse of who he was. And then he went on to say, blessed are you, Simon, for this was not revealed to you by heaven, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. And I will give you the keys of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. On this rock I will build my church. Where did Jesus say that? So theologians debate, what is Jesus talking about? On this rock I will build my church. Some people think it's Peter himself, and some people say it's that confession that Jesus is the Son of the living God. But if we think of where Jesus was, he was in Caesarea Philippi. He was by Mount Hermon. And when he said, on this rock I will build my church, for the gates of Hades will not prevail against it, he was actually, where Caesarea Philippi was a place of extreme idolatry. It literally was called the gates of hell, that place, the Hades. There was a big kind of cave dedicated to Pan, the Greek god, and water gushed out, and that was supposed to be the gates of Hades. And Jesus said, the gates of Hades will not prevail against my people and who I am. This place was a terrible place for idolatry. As I said, there were temples to Zeus all around. They discovered about 12, including to Augustus Caesar, 20 temples like that. The whole area is called Bashan, literally the place of the serpent. It was just famous for idolatry, Greek and idolatry amongst the people of Israel. And to cap it all, if you remember that strange story in Genesis 6 when divine beings came and met with women and giants were born. Remember that strange story in Genesis 6? Well, the Jewish scribes believe that was Mount Hermon as well. It was like all mankind's attempt at rebelling against God was represented by that place. Yeah, all the temples all around, the gates of Hades itself. And Jesus was saying, on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. So he went up this mountain with his disciples, and on this mountain his glory was revealed. I think that's so significant. It's right in this place. In the heart of darkness, his glory is revealed. He is the King of Kings. He is the Lord of Lords. No one can stand against him. More powerful than all the evil forces, more powerful than all the sin and pride of mankind. He revealed on that mountain who he is, who he was. Isn't that a wonderful thing? He is the great I am. That's what he was saying. I am. That rings a bell, does it? Moses, he went into a desert, up a mountain again, and the Lord was calling him, go and I'll send you and you will set my people free. Well, who is it that is sending me? I am, literally Yahweh is the word, and it gets transliterated into Jehovah, but it's literally I am. I am. I am the Lord who made everything. And it could be translated also, I will be. As you walk with me, you will discover who I am. You will discover that I am faithful. Later on, Moses, on another mountain, Mount Sinai, the Lord, it says, passed in front of Moses proclaiming, Yahweh, I am, I am. What was he like? It said, he is the compassionate one, the gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and forgiveness, maintaining love to thousands of generations, forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin, but also not leaving the guilty unpunished because he is holy. It's a revelation of who God is, compassionate, slow to anger, holy. And if we read also through the Old and New Testament, there's so many revelations of who God is, and it's all linked often with the I am, Yahweh, I am. We've got in Isaiah chapter 6, the Lord Almighty, Yahweh Tzvaot, the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory. He is holy. He is 3 times holy. He's the El Shaddai, another name for him in the Old Testament, the one who protects and who watches over. He's the El Elyon, the highest, the greatest Lord. He's the eternal one. And then there's El Roi, he's the one who sees. It's just, the Old Testament is just full of a picture of revealing more and more who God is through I am. I am. Who am I? I am the one who sees. Remember to Hagar in the desert. I am the one who sees. To Abraham on a mountain, Yahweh Jireh. I'm the one who provides. Yahweh Nissi, when Moses was fighting on the mountain, lifting up his arms. I am Yahweh Nissi. I'm your banner. I'm your protection. I am the all-powerful one. I am the one later on. I am Rapha, the one who heals. I'm the one, another word, Yahweh Tzidkenu, the Lord, our righteousness, the one who sanctifies us. He's the Holy One, but he cleanses us. That's what he does. Another word in Judges, and before Gideon, he said, Yahweh Shalom. I'm the one who gives peace. To Ezekiel, he's Yahweh Shammah, he said at the very end of that book. I am the one who is there. I'm present. Isn't that wonderful? Just the picture of who God is. As mankind, who is this God? Who is the King of glory? He is all this and more. And then we come to Jesus. And what did Jesus say? Before Abraham was, I am. I am this God revealed in human flesh. And he would go on to say, well, who am I? I am the Good Shepherd. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the light of the world. I am the bread of life. I am the resurrection and the life. Just God incarnate. And on a storm, in Mark chapter 6, when the storm was raging and the disciples were afraid, the Lord came to him walking on the water. And what did he say? He said, take courage. It's translated, it is I, don't be afraid. But that word, it is I, is simply, I am. Take courage, I am. Don't be afraid. In the midst of the storm, he is the Lord. He is with us. And if he is there, the storms will abate because he is the Lord of Lords and he is the King of Kings. And as I said, and John, when they tried to arrest him, Who are you looking for? Jesus of Nazareth. I am. And they fell to the ground, just as the disciples did. And that's what happened on this mountain. It was everything that Jesus is, that God had revealed slowly through the Old Testament, often on mountains. I am. I am the all-powerful one. I am the all-sufficient one. I'm the one who provides, who stills the storms. I am the one who heals. I'm the one who's with you. I'm the one who cleanses you. And yet he's the loving and tender one, the good shepherd, the one who cares. He's also the suffering one, the one who knows suffering. The very last verse we read was, the Son of Man is also going to suffer at their hands. He was going to die for us. He knows what it is to suffer. We're not on our own. He knows what it is to suffer and to die, and he did it for us. But I love it that when the disciples met the Lord, I mean, what would you do? What would we do? We wouldn't know what to do, would we? Simply says that Peter didn't know what to do. Lord, it's good for us to be here. That could easily be translated as, is it good for us to be here? Is it good for us to be here, seeing this? Of course, yeah. Wouldn't you be? Wouldn't I be? If you wish, and he stammers out, well, I'll put up 3 shelters. Maybe I'll try and contain it. He doesn't know what he's doing. Before his kind of fear, and is this a good place to be? And what happens at that point? There is a revelation from a voice from a cloud says, this is my son whom I love, with him I'm well pleased. Listen to him. It's God the Father speaking to the Son with a message of love. This kingdom, yes, it's a powerful kingdom, it's a holy kingdom, but it's a tender one also of love. The Lord wasn't going to blow these 3 disciples, sinners, just like us, away. No, this is a kingdom of love. This is my son whom I love. And by implication, I love you too. I've called you to this place to receive from me. Because what does he do then? He says he goes to them on the floor and he touches them, which is what the Lord does so much to folks who felt unclean, who felt they shouldn't be there. He goes to them and he touches them and he calls them by name. And that touch is not just a nice, affectionate gesture, which it is too. But the touch it communicates something. It releases something. It releases power. Often he touched the sick and they were healed. And he said to them, get up. Literally means rise. Literally means rise. The same word that's used, the verse after, that raised Jesus from the Son of Man will be raised from the dead. Rise. So Peter, James, and John, before this great revelation, don't be afraid. I love you. I come to you. I touch you. I take your hand and I say, rise. Come, walk with me. Let's go. Let's go down the mountain. I've got things for you to do with this revelation. So folks, I don't know about you this morning. We sang, open our eyes, open your eyes to see the glory of the King. Who is this King of glory? It's all this and more pouring out of Jesus, the Lord of Lords, the King of Kings, the loving one, the holy one, the faithful one. And we think, oh, who am I? Is it good to be here? The Lord comes to you. He puts his hand on your shoulder and he says, rise, come walk with me. And they then went down the mountain. And from this mountain, it was a journey to another mountain, Mount Zion, actually, to Golgotha. Walk with me. It might be a road of suffering, but walk with me. I am the victorious one. I am the all-sufficient one. I am everything that you need. come walk with me. This, in very paltry language, is the Lord who calls us and who meets with us this morning.